Greetings and salutations, Greek students. Now, we've just learned about these pesky second aorist verbs, which don't act like aorist verbs are supposed to act, with the epsilon prefix and the sa, se, saman, sari, san endings. And so instead, what they do is they have the epsilon prefix, but the stem changes. And then when the stem changes, we're supposed to recognize what looks like imperfect endings as actually second aorist verbs. This is frustrating. So let's look at some examples of sentences that occur in the with these second aorist verbs and see what's going on. So these are from Clayton Croy's Primer of Biblical Greek, particularly here, lesson 14. I'm going to start with sentence number 1. En ekene te hemera hemes epi amen oinan kai ephagamen artan. Allah hemes e fugete estein ereman kai prose uxaste. So, as usual, we're going to break this sentence up into its constituent parts. We have this comma separating the clauses here. En ekene te hemera. This is a phrase that we see especially common, these kinds of phrases in the Gospel of Matthew. In ekene, demonstrative pronoun, not the near, but the far demonstrative pronoun, that, te hemera, day. So in that day, and this is just setting up when something will happen. So we don't even yet have our subject, we don't have our verb. And look, lo and behold, we have a nominative, plural, first person pronoun. We, piamen, this piamen verb is our first, is the first of the second aorist that we've noticed. It's from the verb pino, I drink, and in the second aorist becomes epion. So epion, those imperfect endings, on, es, amen, ete, on. So this looks like a first person plural imperfect ending because we see that epsilon prefix. But because the stem has changed from peen to p and dropped the nu, we have a second aorist. So we would translate this as we with emphasis because we have the pronoun and the first person plural built into the verb. We drank, it's aorist, so it's simple past, snapshot. We drank oinon, wine, kai ephagomen, and now phagomen is the second aorist from estheo, I eat, and the epsilon prefix ephagomen, and I'm going to erase some of this so we can have our sentence written clearly. And we ate arton, bread. So this first clause, in that day we drank wine and we ate bread. But Allah, and then again we see this first person plural pronoun. Actually, this must be second person. There's an error here because fugete is second person. And if we look this up, this is a scribal error. Our first scribal error. This should be humes. You, fugete, fled. And again, this is a second, fugete is from estheo, epsilon prefix, and then that second person plural ending. But you fled to estein hemeron, the desert, and this prasuk saste. This is an interesting one. This is from our verb prasukomai. And so what has happened to prasukomai in this instance? This is one of those occasions where it's an odd form because we don't see it a whole lot. Prasukomai, I pray. But that omai ending tells me, oh, I'm looking at a deponent verb in the lexical form. So what has happened? Well, the epsilon prefix has dropped in here, and it's lengthened to A, and AU and the key plus the sigma has become kasi. So this is actually just an example of an aorist middle. But of course, it's aorist middle on a deponent verb, so it's middle in form, but it's active in meaning. So we would just translate this, and you, plural, prayed. So altogether, this sentence, in that day we drank wine and we ate bread. But you, so this is not supposed to be hemes, it's supposed to be humes, fled into the desert and you prayed. So the contrast, we drank wine and ate bread, but you fled into the desert and prayed. Let's do another example. Sentence number 4. Eures tein hadan aletheas ento hero kai egenu doulos dikaiosounes. Ego de uk ethelon akusai. We're going to divide this up into its constituent parts. Eures tein hadan. Eures is from our verb eurisko, I find, and it's in that funky second aorist form, because notice the stem has changed. We've lost eurisk and it should become ur, and so we see the stem change, and then we have that on, s, amen, ere, on imperfect endings. So this is second person singular. You found ton hadon, the way, accusative singular, so it's our definite article. Aletheos. Now aletheos, this is a feminine, it could be feminine singular genitive, or feminine accusative plural. But in this case, it's going to be the genitive, because we don't need another accusative, and it makes sense to say you found the way of truth. Ento hero, in the temple. Okay, so that's our first clause, kai. And egenu doulos dikaiosounes. This is the second aorist form. It's from ginomai, I become. And again, ginomai is an intransitive be verb, so it's like that equal sign verb that we're used to seeing. So you found the way of truth in the temple, and you became. Why is it you? Because it's that omein u eta amatha este anta, those imperfect middle passive forms. So this is from ginomai, so it's got that middle passive form, and it's become second person singular. You became a slave. Now notice slave is also in the nominative. Why? Because it's a predicate nominative. It's that equal sign in that verb between the it's that equal sign in the verb, just like we see with a me. So you found the way of truth in the temple, and you became a slave of what? Dikaiosounes. This is from the noun dikaiosune, righteousness, and it's in the genitive singular, a slave of righteousness. Not a righteous slave, because doulos is in the nominative singular, dikaiosounes is in the feminine genitive, singular. So it can't be, it's not righteous slave, it's a slave of righteousness. But, post-positive conjunction, I, uk athelon, athelon, this is from our verb thelo, I want, I desire. And thelo, notice you see the epsilon prefix, And you could go, okay, well, I see my epsilon prefix, and I could be going either imperfect or aorist. But I don't see a stem change in Thello. So the imperfect ending stays as an imperfect, and I have was wanting. But I was ook negation, not wanting. And Thello is that verb that likes to have that accompanying infinitive and acusai from akuo, the aorist active infinitive, to here. And remember, in these infinitives, when you're talking about verb tense in the infinitive, you're not talking about when it happens. You're talking about how the verb is being described. So the present active infinitive is that movie clip, that imperfective aspect, whereas the aorist infinitive is just the snapshot. We just know at some point there was a snapshot of hearing happening. So you found the way of truth in the temple, and you became a slave of righteousness, but I was not wanting to hear.